but I am here, so.
Very good, thanks. The parade was a success yesterday, eh?
Yes, I think it was. Good community event. So I didn't get a chance to talk to you, but I know you were there, so thank you for being there.
Congratulations. I was wearing a hat. You didn't seem to need to wear a hat. It felt cold to me.
I did have one on for part of the time, but...
Okay. Very good. We'll start here in about half a minute or so. And Mr. Bernstrom, is anyone in the council chambers right now?
Good, thank you, Keith. Mayor, can you pull?
There we go, thanks. Mr. Curry, welcome.
How's it going, Mr. How are you?
Doing well, sir. And we've been joined by Mr. Kavami. We have, I believe we have all members here now. So we'll begin. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to beautiful downtown Grand Forks, the proud home of the University of North Dakota, and our Zoom audience as well. And Ms. Whitney, welcome, Ms. Whitney. We'll begin. Good afternoon. This is the regular meeting of the Growth Fund Committee. We'll begin with a roll call, please.
Dockler? Holst?
Here.
Vami? Weber?
Here.
Wolf?
Here.
We have a quorum?
Mr. Kavami, you're here. Very good. And Ms. Dockler, I think that you're currently muted, but we saw you. Hello? I believe Ms. Dockler is also here. With that, the first item on our agenda after roll call is approval of the minutes from the November 23rd meeting.
I will so move, Mr. Chair.
Very good. We have a motion from Mr. Wolf.
I'll second.
And a second from Ms. Dockler. There we go. Any further comments, questions about the November 23rd minutes? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved, which brings us to item number 3, PACE loan request, North Star Insulation, MVR Properties. Mr. Bombach.
Hello, members of the committee. Good to see you, hear you. I'm happy to present the project proposal in front of you from MVR Properties LLC, which is a real estate holding company for North Star Insulation. We have with us, I understand, on the call, Jason Howard, who's the owner of North Star Insulation. I've asked him just to give you a little introduction to the company and what they're working on and what this project's all about.
Very good.
Hello?
Mr. Howard?
Oh.
Hello. Go
Hi,
ahead. We can hear
Jason,
you.
can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
So, if you don't mind, Jason, Brandon Bombach here, could you tell us just a little bit about the company, what you are currently endeavoring on, and the request for the loan?
Yes. My name is Jason Howard. I own North Star Insulation. We're a mechanical insulation company. We've been around for 27 years in the area. And we're looking at purchasing the building here. And that would help us advance our goals and secure our future here in town. We do what's called mechanical insulation. We insulate pipes, ducts, and large tanks. We work at and help Simplot out, Crystal Sugar, Philadelphia, Macaroni, and LM Wind Power. Our next closest competitor is Miller Insulation out of Fargo, North Dakota. And we position ourselves to be the only one in the community by having the lowest, best pricing. And so we've been able to keep most of our competitors out, and we're looking at furthering our ability to do that by purchasing of the building. We also work at hospitals, schools, and churches in the community. And so with our big base, we like to service everybody we can. And we're hoping with your approval that we can keep on continuing that.
Thank you, Jason. Chair, I'll run through the financials quickly, too. Just a couple of points that Mr. Howard made there, too. They're a very unique product here, and they support a lot of primary sector companies. So North Star Insulation does not meet the state's definition of primary sector, but given their support of primary sector industry and what their revenue reach beyond the area, they certainly are an important company to our region. The project itself is an investment just under $1 million, $961,000 expected, and that's supported by a private loan from Alaris at $475,000 alongside the SBA program, the 504 program. The request in front of you is for the flex space to buy down the interest on the Alaris portion of the loan. So the request from you is a loan of $39,638. That would leverage the Bank of North Dakota's contribution of $73,614. The loan to value is right where we expect it to be, maybe a little bit higher than what you're used to seeing, but on these SBA 504 programs, 92% is quite normal. It's secured with a second mortgage on the building, corporate guarantee and personal guarantee from Jason. If there are any questions on the financing too, Mark Yana, you'll see him. He's representing Alaris on this application as well.
Very good. Questions or comments from committee members?
Mr. Chair, this is Mr. Wolf. If I may request to recuse myself from the conversation due to my role at Alaris.
Very good. Looking for a motion to recuse Mr. Wolf.
So moved.
Got a motion for Mr. Holt, second for Mr. Fahmy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Go on back to the agenda item then. Any questions or comments about this proposal, this base loan request? Either for Mr. Yonner or Mr. Howard, or Mr. Bombach? Hearing that, I'd be looking for a motion.
Move approval?
Motion for Mr. Kavami,
Second.
and second for Mr. Holt. Further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Mr. Yana, Mr. Howard, thank you for joining us this afternoon. This will be considered for final approval at the JDA meeting on January 4th.
Thank you, committee.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, item 4, corporate center leases. Ms. Richards.
Thank you. The first of the two corporate center leases on the agenda is the Ann Love cancellation request and settlement. As your staff report summarizes the situation with Ann Love, as of the last meeting, there was still discussion of their financial documents, which now City Attorney Dan Gossett has reviewed those. And based on that, the recommendation is to accept a settlement of approximately 20 cents on the dollar, and effective December 31st of this year, terminate the lease and accept that $12,600, which represents 20 cents on the dollar, as full settlement. Mr. Gosted did do the lion's share of the review and the negotiating with the Schmidts on this, so I would refer any questions to him. Mr. Roman Schmidt, one of the principals, said he would attempt to be here, but it doesn't appear that he is, but this is basically the settlement that he offered, so I believe he would be accepting of the recommendation that is before you today.
Very good. So after extensive work and negotiations, our city attorney, Mr. Gaustad, has made a recommendation. Any questions or comments?
Just
Mr.
a
Kwame, please.
question is, thank you, sir. Is Mr. Gosted present at City Hall? Or on the line?
Yes, he is.
I am here, yep.
Hey, Dan, just had a question. I wanted to follow up on our conversation last week and just see if you've had any additional communication
with the folks. I think prior to your discussions, just to see how you felt about payment of the settlement or payment of whatever these terms are that we approved tonight.
I had some additional communication. I did my own research on, trying to locate any assets that may be available. I had some email communications with Mr. Schmidt regarding what I located. I don't believe that the value of any of those assets is sufficient or didn't sway my recommendation after having the communication with Mr. Schmidt about it. And so based upon my review of the collectability and pursuing it and the cost and expense of going forward, that the 20 cents on the dollar or the $12,600 payment was reasonable.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Very good. Looking for a motion then?
Mr. Chair, one question for Mr. Gaustad. Thank you, and so I appreciate the work that you put in here, and sounds like this is your recommendation, the prudent option. How quickly would this come to fruition, be finalized, and what would the expectation be on payment?
The way I'm anticipating is that we'd enter into what I would couch as a settlement agreement or an agreement where the lease would be terminated. There'd be a payment upon execution of that document of the $12,600. So my expectation is getting an agreement put together fairly quickly within the next 2 weeks and having that payment. It's not expected to be a payment over time. It will be a payment upon execution of the agreement.
Anything further? Looking for a motion then to accept.
Yeah, I'll move approval. I'm not happy with this outcome, but again, I appreciate everybody's work, and I guess I'll move approval.
Motion for Mr. Kvamme.
I'll second.
Second for Mr. Holt. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. And then Ms. Richards, second part of item 4, Kittsona lease. And Ms. Richards or the subcommittee members, Mr. Kvamme and Mr. Holt. But we'll begin with Ms. Richards.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Yes, the subcommittee met last Friday. They did meet predominantly in executive session and developed, based on a review of the financial information that was provided from Kittsona via the city attorney, they developed the recommendation both on lease terms and repayment of the deferred rent. That is all spelled out in your staff report, and I can certainly walk through it. I would think it would probably make sense for Mr. Gaustad to do that, since he basically drafted the summary that you have in front of you. I did speak to Tessa Heine. Her response was she did not intend to be here today. She's still weighing the recommendation and her options, so she has nothing to present today, so it's just up to the committee to discuss the recommendation out of the subcommittee.
Mr. Gaustad or committee members, subcommittee members? Anything to add?
I really nothing more to add than what's already in the report that summarized the proposal that was made to Ms. Heine at the conclusion of the meeting. I don't want to take all the credit for summarizing it, because a lot of this effort was through the mayor being present. So I want to thank him for being present and assisting in moving this forward, as well as Mr. Holt and Mr. Kvamme. I thought it was a good meeting and trying to move forward in a difficult situation.
Mr. Holt, Mr. Kvamme, anything to add?
I'll just echo that. I think we had a good session going back and forth, and I think the takeaway for Kittsona is that we asked them to come back for the next JDA meeting with some discussion hopefully happening before that. So yeah, Jonathan, if you want to add anything?
I don't really have anything to add. I just want to echo Mr. Gosted's gratitude to the mayor and to Mr. Kavami, and also would like to thank the city staff that was there and provided us with the information, and to Mr. Gosted too during his guidance for us when we had to go into executive session. It's a tough deal. We've said that from the beginning of this, you know, and when we're talking about negotiations, it's never fun to be a part on either side of this, and especially I recognize for Ms. Heine, having to do this all publicly is challenging. And so it's a challenging situation for all. Oftentimes in negotiations, if neither party is happy, that means you landed on the right deal, the right number. So we'll certainly see what happens next. But I think after a lot of discussion, I think this is the recommendation is what the committee felt was fair moving forward.
Thanks to everyone for their work on this. Any further questions for Mr. Gaustad, Ms. Richards, or the subcommittee members? Hearing none, looking for a motion to accept their recommendation.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Wolf,
I'll second.
and we have a second from Ms. Doctor. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Very good. Before we start on item 5, the review of 2020 and preview for 2021, I just wanted to very quickly recognize and welcome Ms. Whitney and Mr. Crary, the anticipated new members of this committee as we expand from 5 till 7. Looking forward to their participation and their expertise, and thanks for taking the time to meet with us today. You're not yet on the job, so there was no requirement for you to be here, but thanks, and I'm hoping that this next item in particular will be of value to you as we consider all the things that happened in 2020. I've been using the term a banner year for the JDA. Ms. Richards, being a good bureaucrat, and I mean that in the sincerest and most respectful manner possible, I have great respect for our bureaucrats, and Ms. Richards among the highest of them all. She's hesitant to use such hyperbole as a banner year, but we did a lot in 2020. So looking forward to that review, and then most importantly, a look forward at how we can take everything that we've done in 2020 and move forward. So I believe, Mr. Phelan, will you be walking us through this review of 2020?
I'm going to walk through 2020.
Very good. Ms. Richards.
So yes, I will take the year in review and then hand that off to Mr. Phelan.
Very good.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Good.
Well, as you said, Mr. Weber, it was a busy year. I don't know that if it was a banner year, but we certainly started the year with a lot of listening sessions and a lot of uncertainty. But as this summary shows, it was a busy year, and Grand Forks certainly didn't fold its tent and shut down during the pandemic. Just to run through this real quickly, the property sales, of course, we never know in the business park how those will turn out. The Cirrus facility was kind of preordained, but the extra lot sale that is pending was a bonus to that. 2 significant sales approaching $1 million in the business park. That's, again, we can't count on it, but we've been pretty consistent, so that's good news there. Flex Pace, 11 loans with 9 businesses. Some of those are pretty small. We've got a range of just over 6,000 for Oxford Brewing to well over 150,000 in 2 loans for True North. So this is kind of traditionally the bread and butter of the JDA in terms of routine loans. Also did some creative loans with Air Autonomy and Tailory, taking off on the state lift program. We did a couple of new and exciting loans with some tech firms. More on that as we talk about 2021. Startup loans, this was a kind of a finalization of a pilot program and moving it more towards a permanent place in our portfolio. Again, a summary of the loans, just hitting that target cap of $100,000 a year in its third year. Have been in discussions recently with BND as this program has kind of evolved slowly but steadily over its 3-year existence, so more on that in 2021. Leased properties, as you just heard, we are ending leases with our 2 retail tenants, but extending with Noah's Ark. It's not listed there that Cirrus will no longer be a tenant once this sale closes, but we will be looking forward to some exciting new opportunities in the Herald Building. As we move down to the EDA section, you can see we did a lot of plan reviews and creation of plans to accommodate the $1.5 million grant that we got from EDA to develop our COVID response program. And thanks to Colin Hansen, we've already got 7 loans approved and looking to get about $300,000 out the door yet this month. And our grant request for fit-up funds for the Herald Building, while we haven't got a grant award, we've been getting very positive feedback from the folks at EDA, so that is looking very positive. All of these things that we have done are kind of a preview to what we need to look at in 2021 as we sell properties and look at how we use that cash and how we supplement the income that we won't be receiving from income properties as we sell them. We're hoping to do some kind of a deep dive into a review of our portfolio, including some long-term projections for both Fund 5996 and Fund 2163. Again, talking about as we look at selling off properties, whether it's Cirrus or the corporate center, how do we reinvest those funds? We do see some potentially big ticket items coming up with the fit up of the Herald Building on the horizon, as well as the operations of that. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Todd to kind of walk through some of the specifics of what we hope to do next year, both kind of in the planning stages as well as specific project activities.
Thank you, Meredith, and thank you, Chairman Weber and Growth Fund Committee. We think it's really at a strategic time, and Mr. Weber, you've been on the Growth Fund for some time, and I think with the added 2 additional members, this is really a more strategic time that we're moving forward in 21, and I totally agree with you. We've had a banner year. We had a banner year despite having a 100-year pandemic, so that's a pretty incredible story that we have to tell. One thing that we really have moved forward with, the first bullet is working with the mayor is looking at us in the EDC, looking at the portfolio, and Fund 5996 is really our growth fund, and 2163 is our city economic development fund, and looking at those over the next 10 years and putting them more in a portfolio range of kind of where do we have all of our assets, knowing that we're looking at selling the corporate center, and we have the Cirrus that's soon to be finalized too. So looking at it and where do we have all of our different assets, I think the other thing that really highlighted this, and we worked with Keith, is we have some higher risk loans in the tech industry, and those 2 are highlighted by Air Autonomy and Tailory. And so how do they fit into the broader category of loans? We know what the PACE loans and the flex PACE loans, those are pretty safe and secure and less risky, but how do we, with all the other, we've approved 2, how do we incorporate into a policy? And this is where Mr. Wolf, I think you really have pushed us up. We need to start looking at, we've done some pilot things or some let's try some things. We need to really formalize a portfolio of where do we have higher risk assets versus lower risk, where do we have buildings, where do we have workforce, and all these sorts of things. So we are planning to come back in the new year under the city administration and the mayor to come up with some proposals on what that mix might look like in all those broad categories, number 1. The other thing is looking at the growth fund on the non-primary sector business development, and that really came out of looking at Another thing that Mr. Weber has worked on is along with all of our other partners in the community, is the regional market capture. And one thing we know moving forward, I'll give you two examples of these non-primary sector things that we need to consider. Number one is workforce. Number two is really capturing and growing the tech sector. And then finally, looking at kind of our strategy of growth and development as we move forward. So in all of those areas, kind of where does that fit within this primary sector portfolio? We are getting more and more coming out into this new economy and getting out of COVID and really what has happened to retail. We're getting more and more commercial developers ask the city, are there any development incentives that we can help incentivize retail? And we haven't focused on that a lot. It just happened. But we're getting more and more inquiries on where does the city stand in those areas, and we should have that conversation sooner rather than later. The other part is something that the EDC has helped lead, is this Accelerate loan program. Keith is here today too. He can really press that a little bit more. There's been an EDC board meeting on that where they further discuss. Again, that gets into how does that fit within our broader portfolio, looking at how much cash we intend to have over the next 10 to 20 years and how does that fit in there. We plan to brief that. Meredith talked about the Herald Building as a tech accelerator. We already have some tech companies in the Herald Building. We anticipate that moving forward as a tech accelerator, not only as a hub of a tech accelerator, but our downtown as that place where we will have our home to our tech corridor in the built environment in the downtown as we move forward. The other important part is the City Council, I think, is going to move forward with the first step of 4 mixed-use developments. 3 are centered in the downtown, 1 is at UND. 3 of those developments are really going to move forward with expanding the downtown, providing enhancements to the downtown, and really enhancing the downtown as our tech corridor as we move forward. So we want to incorporate the growth fund into what we're doing from a broader development perspective. And then there's the Nistler School of Business and Public Administration. We did make that investment as part of a workforce development center, and what does that really mean? So we're planning to come back to you and how we're not only just going to invest, but how we're going to make that go. And with all these investments that we've made on behalf of the Growth Fund and JDA, they're certainly city investments, but they're broader than that. They're community investments beyond the city of Grand Forks. So that workforce development center not only will have a city component, but we'll have a broader community and business development perspective in that office is really what our goal. So again, we want to lead that out, but lead it out with our partners. Meredith talked about the sale of Corporate Center 1 and 2. We do have that in the city budget that will be sold at some point in 21. That's our goal to complete that. And then finally, that's a lot of work from looking at our portfolio to looking at where we're moving the tech sector, the development sector, the retail sector, trying to really accelerate ourselves in the workforce and business development sphere. So there has been discussion on a position in business development, a position that can be more proactive, working with commercial developers, working with the tech sector, working in the accelerator, working in the Nistler School of Business Public Administration, along with all of our existing personnel, and really to move the needle and work that program. So there's been some discussions for some time, and this first came out when we were discussing the Market Capture Committee. How do we not only do the study, how do we keep those initiatives going? And I think when we've considered this business development position piece, it has gotten broader and broader, and has gotten really more and more needed in many different areas. So the discussion is we want to really kick that off in the new year in January of moving forward so that we're just not planning, but we're executing and we're moving to action. Secondarily, where should that position be? And there's been a handful of areas where it's been discussed. Should it be within the city of Grand Forks in the Community Development Department? Should it be in the EDC? Should it be in the chamber, or should it be somewhere else? But we really want to start moving forward with that particular position. So not only are really moving to action and taking responsible for our action. So with that, in the first meeting in January, Growth Fund Chair, we'll come back with documents on all of those and have some further discussions, because really what the Growth Fund Committee does for us as city staff, you sharpen what we're working on. You make things better than what we're working on, but we want to get you a really good start on kind of where we're going in the new year. And maybe with that, if the mayor has any more words to add to that.
Mayor.
Thank you, Growth Fund Committee members. I'm pretty excited to get working on the budget here coming up in the spring, not just for 2021, but looking at 2022 and beyond as we start to move away from rental income. We still need to have a budget that allows ammunition, let's just say, for economic growth and how we balance Special Revenue Fund 2163 and Enterprise Fund 5996. Definitely need a long-term funding plan and probably go back to more of a traditional split of that sales tax revenue. But in the end, I think anything we can do that creates more growth, raises the tax rolls, and increases that mill value is going to help out our school system. I think times like these, that's what it's all about, and looking to the future. So I'm excited to hear some of the committee members' ideas going into the future, and yeah, let's close off this year. A great year, and in some ways a terrible year in others, so I think it's a great time to look to the future. But thank you for all your guys' work.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Mr. Wolf, if you wouldn't mind, I didn't ask you about this earlier, but you, in many ways, were behind this push for us to reimagine the JDA in terms of a portfolio. Would you mind speaking to that for a moment?
Sure, Mr. Chair. Yeah, it's not just me. Obviously, a lot of people. We've had conversations this year. I think this is a good time to reflect on what has been, in many ways, a challenging year. But as we talk things through, it's good to remind ourselves we've accomplished a lot together. With that said, we've got to continue to have a strong foundation. So how can we be even better, move our region forward into the future? And part of that, I think, is what you're talking about, Mr. Chair, is just with the resources that we have available to us through the economic development and JDA, what is it, how do we want to deploy them? And maybe we're starting to look at things a little bit differently. So I look forward to additional conversations, insights. There'll be a lot of brainstorming, good ideas, and try to help build off of what we've already started. So.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Wolf. I think you're being humble there, but I appreciate those comments. My understanding of what it is that we're doing is going beyond simply being the holder of an account of funds to help leverage EDC-sponsored deals or deals that the EDC has put together, and to think more comprehensively about our economic development funds and to be more strategic about how to apply those. So not inconsistent with anything that's being said, but that's kind of my understanding of what we're looking at. Today, staff, are you looking for more specific direction from committee members in terms of percentages for different directions? What would you like from the committee today? Was this mainly just for our information, or are you looking for more direction beyond a green light?
No, Chair Weber, we were just going to give you kind of a heads up for the next Growth Fund meeting in January. And then, these are our thoughts and ideas. And if you had thoughts, ideas, other things you want us to consider in advance as you ponder here in the balance of December, if we could know that sooner rather than later, and we'll do our best to really get off on a running start here in the new year.
Committee members, anything? I have some thoughts, but I don't want to monopolize the mic here.
The only thing that I don't have any specific ideas right now to bring forward. The only thing that I'll add is just, hearing you talk about sort of what's upcoming in the next year and thinking about our role in that as a committee. I'm excited to add Mr. Crary and Ms. Whitney. I think they'll bring great perspectives to the things that were outlined. You all have heard me say before, I think we work best as a community when we work together. So I think that, the partnership between the Growth Fund, the EDC, the JDA, any opportunity that we have to work across silos and together, I think the move towards, not focusing only on primary sector. Mr. Lund is in the audience, and I think, and has heard me say this probably one too many times, but I just think that's so critical to the success of our community that we look at these measures and these initiatives holistically. So I'm excited for what the next year will bring. I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and get my hands dirty with all of you. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holt. I'd actually like to echo some of the sentiment there from Mr. Holt. The JDA was originally created as a jobs development because we needed jobs in our city and in our region. With today's unemployment rate, that's not exactly the driving force anymore. We're looking for different forms of economic development, and much of our history over the last couple of decades at least has been support of primary sector development. And I'm not suggesting that we should move away from that, but that consistent with what Mr. Holt has just said, we should look for ways to be more mindful of our small business owners, operators in our community. They are a tremendous local economy, and they're often out there on their own. Now, in this year of the pandemic, as the mayor has noted, in some ways it's been a fantastic year for some of our businesses. Clearly, that was not the case for all of our businesses, and it's not yet clear to me what those needs might be, who might have needs, what it is that we might be able to do. But the only thing that I would add to what I've seen so far in the preview, Mr. Phelan, is that we consider ways that we can support not just primary sector, but also our small business owners and operators in our community. Mr. Kavami, Ms. Dockler, anything further to add at this time?
No, nothing else.
Very good. We're anticipating that it'll be approved very soon, and that Mr. Crary and Ms. Whitney will be joining the committee. Whether that happens or not, we're certainly interested in your input. Do you have any thoughts, anything that you'd like to add, or any questions that you might have for the committee members or for staff at this time? Ms. Whitney, Mr. Crary?
Mr. Chairman, I first look forward to the opportunity to serve, and thank you to the EDC for the nomination. I think to Mr. Holt's point, given kind of the opportunity to collaborate and look at all the different pieces of impact that this committee can have is going to be exciting, and I think it's going to be a really exciting year ahead for the Growth Fund and also the JDA. I think coming onto the committee, I'll probably obviously have questions as we come on, and I think, maybe just for me personally, understanding, the funds a little bit better might be a good starting point. And thinking through, what is the mission and vision of these funds. And I think to Mr. Wolf's point, thinking about what then would be that strategic portfolio given the purpose of these funds. I think I still need to fully understand that as someone coming onto the committee.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Mr.
Sorry
Crary.
about that. Yeah, I think I would share that sentiment. I'm really excited for the opportunity, so I appreciate that. Really excited talking to Keith a little more too about kind of the history and the direction potentially really of the Growth Fund and where it's been and where it wants to go and its impact on the community. And so I'm very, very excited for the opportunity to kind of hopefully be able to lend a little bit of expertise and a little 2 cents here and there and put some time, some work into it to make Grand Forks better. And I really like looking at the 2021 preview and to echo Ms. Whitney's comments as well. It'll be interesting to kind of find out a little more at that first January meeting, maybe looking at the portfolio and the priorities and the funds and just kind of, might take a minute or two to get acclimated with the core purpose from the committee, because everybody, you can read it on paper, but it's one thing to read on paper what the core purpose is, another thing when you start talking to everybody in a room and you actually start talking about real dollars and real opportunities. So pretty excited for the opportunity, really excited to hopefully make a mark and make Grand Forks better.
Very good. Thank you both. And Mr. Lund and your board at the EDC, thanks for the excellent recommendations here. Ms. Whitney and Mr. Crary, both being a little bit humble. Ms. Whitney, you've often interacted with this committee and with the JDA. And Mr. Crary, your leadership on the market capture has also brought you into the fold of many of these conversations. But it isn't a terribly steep one, but there is a bit of a learning curve. And I wonder at this time, Ms. Richards, Mr. Phelan, whether we should just work towards an orientation for Ms. Whitney and Mr. Crary in anticipation of January, or if that might be a good way to begin the year is with a quick primer on these different funds. Any thoughts there from staff or
I think that's a good idea. I think when we go over, Mr. Weber, Fund 5996 and 2163 and maybe some proposed changes, I think that'll be good instruction on kind of where we are today and what the proposed changes are. So I think we can do both at once as we move forward at the same time. But we'll get the information, we'll try to get information out in advance of the next meeting, so people aren't reading it as we speak, but they have, and I think Mr. Kavami said this, we'll try to get it out sooner rather than later, so you have some time to review and follow up with some questions in advance of the meeting.
Very good. I like that. Not only is it good for new members, it's not bad reminder for those of us who have been here for a while, some of the basics of our work, but also these meetings are public meetings, and it's good information to share with the public as well. So if there's room, let's make room for the on the January agenda to move forward with that.
Mr. Weber, it was our intent to kind of kick off this 2021 preview process with a little bit of a historical perspective, just to kind of bring everyone up to speed and kind of the obvious recognition that we shouldn't be doing things in 2021 the way they were done in the 1980s when the Growth Fund was established. But also, I can provide the boring links to the policies and procedures to our new members, but I'd certainly encourage, Keith just offered to buy lunch for all of us. So if you would like to have a little bit of an informal briefing ahead of the official briefing in January, just please reach out. And welcome, personally and professionally. Thank you.
I'll let Keith buy me some lunch. I'd like to be at that meeting. Yes, please. Very good. Anything further for the good of the order today? Comments about this item? Any other new business? It isn't required that we go right up to the last minute before council. Hearing nothing further, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Very good. Meeting in a motion in a second. Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Merry Christmas to you all.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks, everybody.
Merry Christmas, everyone.